This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
This week on Big Story. Connecting Europe and Asia.
China is creating the opportunity for Europeans to ship goods to China through Piraeus and through the railroads. It's not a one-way game. This is a two-way process. China wants goods from abroad, they want food from abroad, and they want to be able to move their goods into Europe as well.
Creating opportunities for European companies.
China is clearly the biggest car market in the world, and also for us at Mercedes-Benz, it's by far the biggest market in the world. Last year, roughly 25% of all of our Mercedes worldwide sales were in China.
Sharing the buying power of the world's largest middle class.
It's a very desirable market. Everyone wants to be here because they see the growth. I mean, the growth is there.
Using new infrastructure to lower the prices of millions of goods.
I think what the Belt and Road Initiative has done is to make it easier for brands to travel. The appetite for brands is unabated, and if you can put quality brands in front of Chinese consumers, they will buy it.
Recreating and modernizing Europe's aging infrastructure.
We are a country with emerging economy, which means that we need to have infrastructure needed for reindustrialization, because last 25 years, maybe 30 years, we have completely destroyed our economy.
And forging new paths of connectivity.
In 2015, when I got the portfolio of tourism in Greece, we had only 20,000 Chinese visitors. 2016, we had a little growth of around 80,000. 2017, we almost got 200,000. So this year, it's going to be really one of the best years for our Chinese market.
The New Silk Road, the finale of a three-part series. Next on Big Story.
China would like to share its own experience in terms of development in the past 40 years. China has been benefited enormously in the past 40 years by building strong and solid infrastructures.
Now, China has done an amazing job of delivering that infrastructure for its own population of 1.4, 1.5 billion people, but what about the rest?
What you see in China is a country that in 30 years has actually grown massively in terms of its economy. It's a very desirable market. Everyone wants to be here because they see the growth. I mean, the growth is there.
China is creating the opportunity for Europeans to ship goods to China through Piraeus and through the railroads. It's not a one-way game. This is a two-way process.
China has set off on an unprecedented international development plan. called the Belt and Road Initiative. Using roads, rail, sea and air, the BRI looks to streamline global integration, connecting the population-dense centers of East Asia and Western Europe. In the Greek capital of Athens, the port of Piraeus serves as the Mediterranean hub of the Belt and Road Initiative. The port was acquired by China's state-owned COSCO in 2015 and now plays a key role connecting Europe to China.
I am a taxi driver of the seas. As a Greek ship owner, I'm transporting anything for anyone, anywhere.
Nikos Vernikos has built his career and company on the open seas. He knows just how crucial his home port and Greece are to global transport.
95% of global goods are transported by sea. But the second and very important is the investments that the Chinese are making. They are investing in infrastructure and machinery and technology in order to be able to offer services to the millions of containers who now transit from the port of Piraeus.
Occupying 35 square kilometers, the port is one of Europe's most important. 40,000 vessels use its facilities, and 20 million passengers pass through the port every year. It's one of the main hubs for the movement of goods in and out of the continent. Positioned next to Africa, Europe and the Suez Canal, the port is strategically important for global trade.
Well, the primary trade routes for China in terms of the Maritime Silk Road are from the Far East China region through to the Middle East, Africa, Mediterranean and all the way through to North Europe. So it's a very long trade route. A company like COSCO is one of the largest shipping lines in the world. In terms of container shipping, it's one of the big 4 global players. So it's very influential and increasingly so because so much of the world's container trade, for example, is generated by China.
The purchase of Piraeus represents an important piece in the jigsaw of China's One Belt, One Road strategy, linking Europe and Asia, facilitating the movement of products and people. "300 kilometers from Piraeus, on the volcanic island of Santorini, Yanis Telepos readies his product for the port.
Εντάξει, κάνει, είναι καθαρό. Θα πάει για αυτό, για τριγωπάτι είναι αυτό. Έτσι, μαζί με το αηδάνι. Μπράβο, να το βάλουμε εκεί. Το ασύρτικο έχει μία μοναδικότητα. Είναι μία ποικιλία η οποία προέρχεται εδώ και 3.500 χρόνια. Είναι μια ποικιλία η οποία έχει επιζήσει όλα αυτά τα προβλήματα που πέρασε η Σαντορίνη, αλλά το σημαντικότερο είναι ότι επιβιώνει πάνω σε εδάφη από το ηφαίστειο. Κοτσαμπελώνας στον κόσμο, ο οποίος είναι φτιαγμένος πάνω σε εδάφη ηφαιστειογενή και αυτό το μοναδικό τερουάρ του δίνει μια πολυπλοκότητα η οποία το ξεχωρίζει από όλα τα άλλα κρασιά.
The winery produces 50,000 bottles a year for export all around the world.
Είναι κρασιά premium, που σημαίνει ακριβά κρασιά.
And Yanis has a plan to help grow his export business to China.
Η Ελλάδα και η Κίνα είναι οι δύο αρχαιότεροι πολιτισμοί και νομίζω ότι με την αιγίδα του πολιτισμού μπορεί σιγά σιγά να διεισδύσουμε και με τη γαστρονομία και με τα ελληνικά προϊόντα.
Almost 9,000 kilometers away, helping Yanis enter the Chinese market is Hellas House.
This is an inspiring house. This is a house representing Greece in the heart of Shanghai.
Adorned with marble columns and figures amid the bustle of the city, the center introduces Chinese consumers to the finest of the Mediterranean.
Now, we are going to visit the god of wine and theater, Dionysus. We go to the treasure of the house, the wine cellar, named after, of course, the god of wine, Dionysus. Welcome.
Today, visitors are in for a treat. The cultural centre is hosting a wine tasting of Santorini's volcanic wine.
Last house is a labor of love. My wife and I started 5 years ago an umbrella to promote, to expose and showcase the best Greece has in hospitality, gastronomy and culture.
Pavlos Kontamekalos is the owner of Hellas House. Though he is from Greece, Pavlos has been living in China for the last 24 years.
Our vision and our mission is to find the best Greece has, make them even better, and then bring them to the right people. China, for most companies, is really scale. It's the number 2 market, number 3 market, number 1 in some cases. So it really matters on the multinationals and corporate P&L. It's a very desirable market. Everyone wants to be here because they see the growth. I mean, the growth is there.
BRI is probably the most exciting project that's ever been undertaken in the history of the world. It has those types of dimensions. BRI is about transforming the transportation system, the communication systems of the world, and the energy systems of the world. It's also about sharing prosperity in order that countries can work together for economic development. If you take what China learned to do that, building the infrastructure, building the capacity in the cities and the towns to build consumer societies, that's what you're going to see in BRI.
The first is to take the lessons of China's own development in using infrastructure to drive economic growth and bring that to other countries. China has been seeking to move to a more domestically driven economy and to increase its imports for a long time, and connectivity runs 2 ways. So it's about creating new markets for countries outside of China coming to China, as well as helping China go out and access new markets itself.
To make this trillion-dollar vision into reality, Chinese engineers are at work in Asia, Africa, Latin America and Europe. China is hedging its bets on connecting existing markets and creating new ones across the globe through infrastructure.
Building strong and solid infrastructures, as you can see, size countries like China, to get the country to move around. And that's really the prerequisite of acquire economic prosperity. And obviously, China has done that really well in the past 40 years.
We have data going back 200, 250 years showing that when countries invest in infrastructure, that is how you grow. You cannot grow without it. It's kind of obvious. Roads, railways, power supply. When foreign investors go into an emerging market or a frontier market, a developing country, surveys show that the number 1 thing they're looking for isn't necessarily rule of law or low corruption or an educated workforce. Of course, those things are really important. Do you know what they're looking for? A stable electricity supply.
In 2001, China joined the World Trade Organization, marking the country's re-entry into the international community. At the time, the country was suffering from widespread poverty, but that has all changed.
Essentially, it's about more trade and more economic cooperation. Of course, the basic idea is more about infrastructure, which China is doing very well at home. According to the UN estimate, China alone largely accounts for 80% of the world's poverty reduction. So China has indeed created the world's largest middle class.
So to me, this is pan-Asian, again, driven by China, but now everyone is involved. The membership in the Belt and Road Initiative has grown to include many more countries. The Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, which translates some of that vision into finance, is probably the fastest growing multilateral organization in history.
To stimulate its domestic economy, China took to building airports, roads, rails, and ports. Today, China is the world's 2nd largest economy. It is home to the world's largest middle-class population, but the World Economic Forum believes will reach 65% of households by the next decade. China hopes the Belt and Road can help other countries find their way out of poverty, while facilitating China's consumption needs.
The current financial system, global financial system, it's working, but it's not helping infrastructure, which is a demand which China can do. So it's China view this road as more complementary.
The World Bank and other entities abandoned infrastructure finance in the 1960s while these countries were poor and independent and their populations were growing. So in a way, what I say about Belt and Road is if it did not exist, you would have to invent it. You must bridge that market failure for infrastructure services, steel, the finance, and Belt and Road wraps that all into one.
The BRI spurred to life in 2013 with the completion of the new Eurasian land bridge, a network of rail lines connecting eastern China to the shores of Western Europe. Today there are over 100 Belt and Road projects worldwide. In 2018, Greece took a step closer to China when a memorandum of understanding was signed between the two countries to advance the construction of the Belt and Road. Greece was the first developed country to do this.
China is creating the opportunity for Europeans to ship goods to China through Piraeus and through the railroads. It's not a one-way game. This is a two-way process. China wants goods from abroad, they want food from abroad, and they want to be able to move their goods into Europe as well. So this is very much a two-way process of trade that's going to go on.
This shift in China's economy can be seen in its appetite for automobiles. The Middle Kingdom is the world's largest purchaser of cars and trucks. Beijing and Shanghai even host two of the world's largest car shows.
China is clearly the biggest car market in the world, and also for us at Mercedes-Benz, it's by far the biggest market in the world. Last year, roughly 25% of all of our Mercedes worldwide sales were in China.
28 million vehicles were sold in China in 2018. 17 million were sold in the United States that same year.
If you look at the top of the line product, so we're really talking in the premium segment, the S-Class Maybach, more than 60% of all Maybach sales worldwide go to Chinese customers. So it's our top priority market.
Ultimately, Chinese consumers, or middle-class consumers, are actually no different emotionally from anyone else in the world. They like high quality. They want to have something that's fit for purpose, and they want to have something that makes them look good. I mean, that's the same wherever you are in the world.
Jonathan Giltart is the Executive Director of Market Development at Grant Thornton, a global accountancy group.
I think what the Belt and Road Initiative has done is to make it easier for brands to travel. The appetite for brands is unabated, and if you can put quality brands in front of Chinese consumers, they will buy it.
One quality product that has found success in China is Spain's world-famous jamón. Every year, Chinese consumers spend over $2 million on imported ham.
With the development of economic, Chinese people are getting more money, and enjoying life is a new fashion. So people willing to spend money on the real gourmet products, special products like ham.
Chinese imports of Spanish products grew by 28% between 2016 and 2017, totaling $6.5 billion. The BRI seeks to invest heavily in infrastructure to open new corridors for trade. To do this, Chinese companies are making new roads, ports, train lines, and airports across the globe. Or in the case of Piraeus, overhauling existing outdated capability. As Greece was in the grips of a devastating recession and unable to maintain the port, a majority stake in the facility was put up for sale. Dr. Vasilis Monsteriotis is a professor of economics at the London School of Economics.
In Greece, in early 2010, physically ran out of money, so there had to be an arrangement for Greece to be bailed out. But also Greece was running a very high debt, unsustainable debt, and with the recession ensuing, the debt became definitely unserviceable. So there had to be measures taken. In exchange for the bailout money, reforms had to be implemented domestically.
Between 2010 and 2016, Greece had to be bailed out multiple times by the EU and the IMF, to the tune of 326 billion euros.
The Greeks, because of their financial situation, were in a position of having to liquidate assets in order to pay debts, and they needed people who they felt they could trust, who would be able to buy an asset like Piraeus and develop it.
Greece needs investments in order to develop our country, which following an almost 10-year economic crisis is in a very difficult position, and the Greek people are really in a big hardship.
And since the takeover, the port is thriving.
Since the privatization was signed and in August of 2016, there's mandatory investments valued at approximately 300 million euros. Now with the new floating dock that has come, that has a lifting capacity of 22,500 tons, the vessels that were usually going to other countries for ship repair facilities during the winter months can now be serviced here. So that will create a lot more jobs in the ship repair area.
Theodora Riga is the port's strategic planning and marketing manager.
We also have extra investments that COSCO wants to do on their own, inclusive of looking at possible development of hotels. Our consultants have found 4 different areas that could possibly be renovated and created and used as hotels. And we also have one area that could become a greenfield project for a hotel. It's very important to have hotels here for the people that are visiting Piraeus.
And now business at the port is booming. Local Athens businessman Nikos Meniotis welcomes the Chinese takeover. He runs a spice and pet food business.
Our company was established 100 years ago from my grandfather, mostly importing and doing wholesaling in spices. The spices, they come from India, from Pakistan, from Vietnam, from Brazil, and from China also.
His company has benefited from COSCO, modernizing the way the port is run.
The port of Piraeus is very important also to our business because all of our goods are imported. After COSCO arrival, we saw a great development on the port of Piraeus. Also, we have to admit that the services were much better, quite faster, and we have the opportunity to choose between different and various shipping companies so that we can get cheaper freights for the cost of our goods.
The BRI isn't just helping European businesses work better at home, it also opens the door to China's consumers.
Witard has been selling tea to China for many years, and when I joined the company 5 years ago, the first thing I noted was how many Chinese consumers were coming into our stores in London and in the university towns around the country and buying our tea to take back as gifts for family and friends. And this trend continued to develop, and it's a very useful signpost to us in determining where the growth markets are in the world.
Mark Dunhill is managing director of Witard of Chelsea, a world-famous retailer of teas and coffee.
What for me is important is that the Belt and Road Initiative is a further illustration of how the Chinese government is becoming more receptive to developing international trade relations, how they are more welcoming to international brands who are looking to build their businesses in China.
His company is trying to expand its presence in China by opening brick-and-mortar stores.
I've noticed a big shift in the attitude of the Chinese government and an increased level of sensitivity and supportiveness, particularly in our case, in helping us to ensure that our intellectual property is protected. And that makes a big difference, saves us a lot of time, saves us a lot of money in legal fees, and also gives us more confidence to invest in the market. So I think it's a very sensible approach and a very welcome one.
Witard isn't the only company looking to tap into the buying power of China's consumers. According to the World Bank, in 2017 alone, the Chinese shoppers spent over $2.2 trillion on imported goods and services, accounting for 18% of the country's GDP. It's not just the Chinese government investing in Greek infrastructure. As part of China's Belt and Road Initiative, private investors are also making deals. 7 kilometers south of Athens lies Ellinikon, the old Athens airport. Built in 1938, it was the main airport for the country until 2001. Planes now litter the runway, and buildings lie derelict. But this 8 kilometers site is a key asset that Greece has been trying to sell.
I think the two countries share a similar mentality, similar culture. We have civilizations of long history, both countries. And I think it's no surprise how the countries managed to cooperate as far as the privatization process is concerned.
Aris Yenafos is the chairman of TAIPED, the Greek agency liquidizing the nation's assets.
For us, the importance is not just selling an asset or privatizing an asset, but primarily what goes along with that asset in the next day. The better we do, the profile of our country is actually lifted up.
In 2017, Chinese investors Fosun, alongside a Saudi and Greek consortium, finally struck a deal to buy the abandoned airport for $2.4 billion.
The Chinese are prepared to take risks to buy airfields that others aren't prepared to take. The Chinese are very bold about analysing what they need and then going out and establishing it. And a derelict airport to one set of investors is for the Chinese an opportunity.
The consortium will invest a further $6 billion, developing 8,000 homes, hotels, shops and a casino, raising $14 billion in taxes for Greece and attracting 1 million tourists. Experts say Greece will need $100 billion in investments over the next 10 years to recover. Aris believes that Greece's blossoming relationship with China is moving the country in a positive direction.
I think it's more than clear that the ties between China's Republic and Hellenic Republic are quite strong. The privatization of the Piraeus Port has been rather successful and highly successful story.
China has also invested in the port of Valencia, the port of Bilbao, and the railway terminals in Zaragoza and Madrid. In Germany, Duisburg has become an important hub in northern Europe for Chinese trains. And in the Netherlands, the port of Rotterdam signed a memorandum with the Bank of China to turn the port into a key part of the Maritime Silk Road. In March 2019, Italy became a full partner of the Belt and Road, becoming the second largest economy and the westernmost nation to have joined the project.
Roma e Pechino potranno trarre benefici notevoli da un contesto di cooperazione economica fondato sulla leale concorrenza tra imprese, nel rispetto della proprietà industriale e intellettuale, nella comune lotta alla contraffazione.
The agreement will see China invest almost $3 billion in 29 different projects across Italy.
我们一致认为，双方应该加强发展战略对接，挖掘在基础设施建设、港口物流、船舶运输等领域潜力，打造一批“一带一路”优质务实合作项目。
Italy's decision proved unpopular with EU allies, France and Germany.
Ich glaube, es ist ein sehr wichtiges Projekt. Und bei diesem Projekt wollen wir als Europäer auch eine aktive Rolle spielen und uns einbringen. Und das muss dann zu einer gewissen Reziprozität führen. Und um die ringen wir manchmal noch. Aber das Projekt als solches ist eine sehr, sehr gute Visualisierung auch dessen, was unsere Abhängigkeit voneinander, unsere Verbindung voneinander auch bezeichnet.
People don't understand China. We have to be careful. We have our own interests in the West to protect as China transforms the world with BRI. But we do that by negotiating with China, by creating the security structures that enable us to be secure and provide us with the opportunities to participate in the economies of BRI.
where some find suspicion, others see opportunity. Switzerland joined the Belt and Road in spring 2019. Good news for the country's watchmakers, whose products have begun to prove popular in the Middle Kingdom.
La Chine a été la bonne surprise de l'année passée avec une forte progression de nos exportations, donc on voit une stabilisation qui s'est réalisée et on est confiant également sur l'avenir de ce marché chinois. La Chine représente un grand potentiel de développement pour l'horlogerie suisse, la croissance économique sévit, les classes moyennes s'agrandissent, il y a toujours plus de gens qui ont des moyens en Chine d'acquérir des montres suisses finalement.
Ça reste un marché sur lequel nous avons beaucoup d'espoir et je dirais que l'évolution de la société chinoise, l'enrichissement, la progression de l'économie continue. La marque Hermès est très prestigieuse et perçue comme très exclusive en Chine. Et donc nous sommes confiants sur le futur de ce marché.
In Serbia, another Belt and Road project is underway. This time it's not ships, but trains that are transforming a country's economy, connecting Greece with Northern Europe. This is Serbia's aging train line. Old carriages slowly snake around the 3,500-kilometer tracks that link the country.
Due to the recent history, our railroads are on the level of the end of 19th century.
Mahmut Bushatlia is a Serbian economic consultant.
We are a country with emerging economy, which means that infrastructure needed for reindustrialization, because last 25 years, maybe 30 years, we have completely destroyed our economy.
This rail line survived Yugoslavia's civil war. However, the 130-year-old tracks limit train speeds to under 50 kilometers an hour.
For the economy, the railroad is one of the priority, needs to be. I think that the roads are priority for us, but this is much more expensive, and the transportation of the goods on the roads, it's at least 5 to 8 times more expensive than in the railroad.
Though the line still operates, trains are often delayed, and for daily commuters like Vivian Kortovic, a source of frustration.
When I travel from my hometown to Novi Sad, it takes 3 hours by train, but if you go with car, it only 1 hour, 1.5 hours by car. I depend on the train. Sometimes when train late, I late for classes, so it's really important.
She spends up to 20 hours a week aboard the train.
Sometimes I'm really frustrated about slow train. I think Serbia needs foreign investments on the railway. I think that will be a good idea, and a lot of students will go on time to classes.
China wants to create a new trade route along the maritime Silk Road, stretching from Piraeus through Serbia to Hungary.
What China is trying to do is to share the expertise in terms of building infrastructures, in terms of building its engineering works, and try to help Southern Europe to regenerating its own economy. I think the next big project for China would be the railway between Hungary and Serbia. And that has already been in place, and that seems to go down very well. Greece serves as being a hub, a Mediterranean hub, for the Chinese Belt and Road initiatives.
The use of rail from Piraeus is a key part of the strategy, and the aim is to try and direct traffic through Piraeus and onwards into Central Europe and maybe even beyond by rail.
If you travel north through Europe, eventually you come through Serbia, through other countries, right up into Norway, Finland and Norway. And you get a clear picture of China dissecting Europe with the railroad north to south as they bring the railroads east to west. And that's an important opportunity for Europe to participate in sending cargoes back to China.
A high-speed rail link would save time and money.
China is really strategic about that. They want to build a connection with Europe, and this goes from the European South, where the economies are less developed, and into the European North, where the economies are significantly more developed.
In 2015, the rail link took a step closer. The Serbian government signed a deal with China's Exim Bank, loaning 300 million euros to create the new high-speed rail link between Belgrade and Budapest. Eventually, the aim is to link up to Greece. Zorana Mihailovic is the Deputy Prime Minister. She has been a key player in welcoming the Chinese.
Srbija ima odličan geostrateški položaj. Dakle, bogatstvo Srbije nije ni u njenoj veličini, Srbija nije velika zemlja, nije ni u nekim brojnim mineralnim sirovinama, ali bogatstvo Srbije u njenom geostrateškom položaju. To znači da je Srbija najkraća ruta između istoka i zapada.
And China has been building rail links as part of the Belt and Road Initiative since 2013. It's already invested in high-speed rail links in Kenya and Indonesia. And now Chinese engineers have begun working on the track in Serbia.
兴赛铁路总承包商的总工程师，我的名字叫耿金。兴赛铁路备旧段工程，项目起自既有的贝尔格莱德中心站，终止到旧帕佐瓦站，线路全长是34.5公里。我们现在呢，正在今天我们看到的整个现场的工程，按照施工组织计划是在线路的拆除，以及既有数据的整个线路既有数据的核对，还有我们这个基础的一些个数据的测量，以及也同样你看到了我们对既有的接触网杆的一些个除锈的工程。
The project is mutually beneficial to Serbia and China.
Inicijativa Jedan pojas, jedan put. Srbija je sebe videla upravo kroz modernizaciju pruge, dakle Beograd-Budimpešta, da može biti deo tog globalnog projekta.
我担任在塞尔维亚已经有1年多的时间了，我很喜欢这个国家，我也愿意把我的青春奉献给这个铁路的建设，希望我们总承包的团队团结起来，共同为这个项目顺利的开通做出我们自己的贡献。
China has more kilometers of high-speed rail than the rest of the world combined, and it is now sharing that expertise with Serbia.
Što se nas tiče, Srbija je presrećena zato što će Srbija u tom smislu biti deo jednog globalnog projekta. To za Srbiju znači bolju konkurentnost, više investicija, otvaranje novih radnih mesta. To za Srbiju znači povezivanje koje je Srbiji neophodno. Budući da Srbija zaista još uvek nije završila niti unutrašnje povezivanje, ako govorimo samo o infrastrukturi, niti povezivanje dakle, sa regionom. Znači bolji život za građane Srbije.
And having seen what the Belt and Road is doing for Serbia, Hungary is also keen to get involved. It's committed to borrowing 297.6 million from China's Exim Bank to upgrade their section of the line, which stretches 135 kilometers.
Belt and Road currently rests heavily on financing by Chinese banks, the state-owned banks, the policy banks, to individual countries. Now, these countries often are quite risky. They have risky political environments, the economics are volatile. In some ways, there's a reason why the infrastructure hasn't been built before, because Western bankers have looked at it and said, this is pretty risky.
Some are concerned that levels of government debt in Serbia and Hungary may become too high.
It's a funny criticism to throw at China because who invented debt? The British and the Americans. We financed our whole industrial revolution on debt. So why is it suddenly wrong for China to fund the infrastructure and the building of cities on debt? There's nothing wrong with it. It's a natural part of business to use debt. But debt is probably the largest single phenomena in world finance. So why wouldn't the Chinese use it?
They give us through Export-Import Bank, Exim Bank, they give us the loan, which is a very good loan, and the price of the work is very good. If we compare with the project financed by World Bank or EBRD or something like that, which follows the loans, practically it's much better to get a loan from China than from Western country, Western banks.
Srbija želi to je da bude otvorena za sve vrste investicija i investicija koje dolaze iz celog sveta. Jedna od njih jeste velika sila Narodna Republika Kina i jeste naravno ovaj globalni projekat Jedan pojas, jedan put i ja se zaista nadam da ćemo mi nastaviti sve.
Chinese infrastructure in the Balkans hasn't been limited to Serbia's rail network. Chinese business has also invested in the nation's domestic economy. Montenegro is working with Chinese companies to revamp its highway infrastructure, a relic from the former state of Yugoslavia. In Croatia, engineers are at work building a 2.4-kilometer-long bridge spanning the Bay of Komarna. And talks for continued collaboration in the region are ongoing. But the Belt and Road is not all work and no play. The initiative seeks to promote cultural exchange. And what better way than through tourism? Since 2000, Chinese tourism has increased by over 1,000%, with 145 million trips taken across the world. An increasing number of tourists have been traveling to Greece. Meet the Gov family. They arrived in Athens this morning from Beijing. They're at the Parthenon, Athens' most famous landmark. It's thousands of miles away from Chen Ge's home in Shanghai.
There are so many trees around, and I'm impressed that they don't have any skyscrapers. The highest building is 7-8 floors. It's very nice, and you have a great view over here. And of course, the history is the most impressive.
Elena Contura is a member of the European Parliament and Greece's former Minister of Tourism, a position she began in 2015 and held until earlier this year.
I think that introducing Greece to such a very new destination like China, like a new market, I think more and more visitors are coming to see more of Greece, more of the beauty, and also to have authentic experiences. The Chinese visitors, they love history, they love culture.
For Isabel and Annabelle, it's a dream trip.
I've read a lot about Athens in my novels and books, so it's always been kind of like a fantasy in my head. So it's like really nice to be actually here and see everything that's like written in the books.
Developing relations between Greece and China, we also see increasing flows of Chinese tourists into the country. And of course, Greece has this fantastic brand name, ancient Greece, classical Greece, you know, the Parthenon and everything else. So it is something that can mobilize, you know, big numbers of people to come and visit the country.
Greece has seen an exponential rise in Chinese tourists.
2015, when I got the portfolio of tourism in Greece, we had only 20,000 Chinese visitors. 2016, we had a little growth of around 80,000. 2017, we almost got 200,000. So this year, it's going to be really one of the best years for our Chinese market. And the reason is that we open up a direct flight with Air China, Beijing, Athens.
There are now 3 direct flights a week from Beijing, and other Chinese cities are in the pipeline. China will account for a quarter of international tourism by 2030.
I was talking with my friends. I told them I would go to Greece for traveling. They said, oh, that's also my dream place. Many of my friends said this. Greece is very popular now, more and more to Chinese, because of the view. It's very different with other European countries. So that's also for Chinese people, would love to have a look of Greece. What does it look like? Yeah.
China, in the last 20 years, let's say, has been moving towards this kind of Western type of economy. We have an immensely large middle class who have the ability and the interest to go travel, spend money, do holiday tourism, but also cultural tourism as well. So it's definitely a very significant market, not only for Greece, but for all other economies, all other countries, including in Europe.
The Guff family are leaving Athens to take their cruise ship, which departs from Piraeus. The cruise business in Greece is also set to double in the next 5 years, as the new Chinese owners, COSCO, increase their investments.
There's a plan to go ahead with a southern expansion that will provide us with 2 new berths. And these 2 new berths will be able to accommodate new generation vessels, approximately 400 meters in length, and each carrying about 5,000 passengers.
Our 20% of our GDP is coming from tourism. More than 50 billion revenue, direct and indirect. Tourism for Greece is 365 days a year.
The world is full now of different countries investing in different countries. And we all have to get used to having foreign owners and working with foreigners, and the foreigners have to get used to working with the local people. That's happening in every country in the world. It's no different for China from everybody else.
From Greece to Serbia and China to Africa, we've seen in this series how the Belt and Road Initiative is helping to transform economies across the world.
The involvement of Chinese is clearly, can be seen, that partnership with China is helping this country move to the next level of development.
For China, building roads, railways, and maritime routes, linking continents and countries. It is about creating opportunities for continuing wealth at home.
We are willing to start from zero, start from small, to bring something good to the society.
And also abroad.
I think what the Belt and Road Initiative has done is to make it easier for brands to travel. The appetite for brands is unabated, and if you can put quality brands in front of Chinese consumers, they will buy it.
Definitely, we are the first that we support this initiative, and we will continue to support. We think it's a great idea.
They've been working at sharing the benefits of their economic development model. And that means working with the countries close to them in order that their prosperity is raised.
China tunaambia ni kama ametusaidia, tunaendelea vizuri sababu ya pesa imeingia kupatia watu kazi, vijana sana vijana.
The way the world does business is changing, and with the Belt and Road Initiative, China is at the forefront of that change.
The Belt and Road Initiative is a very important opportunity. I believe that Greece and China will get increasingly close. I believe there is great things to be shared between the 2 countries.
China has benefited enormously in the past 40 years by building strong and solid infrastructure. And therefore, China would like to share its own experience in terms of development to help the countries which are participating in the Belt and Road Initiative.